Dr. Dozon. We're doing great.
Yeah,
we're doing great. Yeah, we've been
if everybody could have a seat, we'll get started.
Should there be minutes for one of the regular sessions in this room, or no?
Just the first two.
Because we didn't do one.
Ma'am. Oh, we got, for January 7th, the minutes. It's gonna be the budget session and the audit committee. I have not done the rest of them. They'll be in the August meeting.
Okay, what you cost to
Yes.
information.
Oh, for it not to be in the next meeting. Now, look back, and Debbie had it several times.
If everyone could find their places, we'll commence.
I was gone so much, I was sick so much.
Oh,
Do you want me to be go find it?
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
All right, folks, since we're a little bit past 4:30, we're going to go ahead and commence with this July 19th meeting of the Caddo Parish School Board. Our invocation and pledge of allegiance today will be led by District 7 School Board member, Mr. Darrin Dixon. Please stand if you're able.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to serve. Lord, we pray now that you invoke your presence in this place. Lord, give us the judgment, give us the understanding to deliberate and make decisions that are in the best interest of the students and constituencies that we serve. Do this in the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If our board members would please respond to the roll call. And I believe that's everybody that's here. Dawn?
Waiting on Dr. Dixon.
Dr. Vincent, okay.
Got it.
You're in? Okay, everybody, thank you. Agenda item 2.01, and before we get to that, I was asked a very pertinent question. The June 21st meeting minutes, what about those?
They're not on there yet.
Okay. All right, that's your answer to your question, Dr. Dozart. So we will consider those at a future date.
Future meeting.
All right. That being said, consideration of the minutes of the June 7th, 2022 Caddo Parish School Board meeting. I would entertain a motion. Ms. Bell?
Move to approve the minutes of June 7th, 2022, Caddo Parish School Board meeting as submitted in the electronic mail out.
We have a motion, Ms. Trammell,
Second.
and we have a second. Please vote on approval of the minutes.
Something going on?
She's working on it. System, they are not going to be able to see them today.
Okay.
The lawyer's computer literally
There's
just
something
died.
going on.
Okay. I'll moderate it then, thank you. All right. Today, before we get started with the items of business, we do have some presentations and recognitions. I'm going to call on our superintendent, Dr. Gorey, to introduce those. You had your own, and you turned yourself on.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Lisa Woolfolk, our Chief Human Resource Officer. She will present our presentations for the evening.
She did not get Mr. Little's.
He did at the very
He did,
end,
okay.
right after, yes.
It's 12.
You got it.
There you go, Ms. Wolf.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Gorey. Good afternoon, President Nations, board members, staff, and community members. This afternoon, we have 3 presentations for you. The first presentation comes from Blue Line Solutions and the Shreveport Police Department regarding the city's plans to begin a school zone speed limit enforcement initiative. Here with us today is Deputy Chief Antoine White, Jonathan Reynolds, and Shonda Reynolds will be joining us shortly, and Corporal Bordelon.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
Hello, hello.
Good. Good evening, I guess. Yeah, I've been talking all day. I don't know what time of day it is. All right. As you mentioned, I'm here to do a presentation for you. I'm actually a consultant with KPS Enterprises, which is the company that my wife's company that was contracted by Blue Line Solutions to implement the photo speed enforcement program that will be implemented in the school zones across Caddo Parish. We're doing them in phases of 10 school zones each. This ordinance was passed in April of 2021 by unanimous approval by the Shreveport City Council, and the program is administrated by the Shreveport Police Department. I have Deputy Chief White here with me today to kind of answer any additional questions or help with questions if you have any. But to just kind of go into the presentations, the reason why we got here was the speed studies were done in each of the districts, and it determined that there was a need. There was quite a few speeders across the Cato Parish in the school zones, and being a citizen of Shreveport and Cato Parish, public safety being a concern of mine, as well as I'm sure some of yours, and the safety of our children being paramount, we saw an opportunity to do something about that problem and offer a solution. On this next slide, it talks about the percentage of speeders, traffic count, and speeding vehicles. For example, Southwood High School on Walker Road, which is the street that was tracked, the traffic count was 9,694 vehicles during that time. In the morning, from 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning, speeding vehicles was 4,635. So that's 48% of the vehicles that traveled down that road from 7 to 9 a.m. were speeding. In the evening, traffic count was 9,006. Speeding vehicles was 5,605. So that's 62% of the vehicles that traveled down that road between the hours of 2 and 4 were speeding. So total speeders, 10,240. But I'm going to briefly go through the rest of them because it's only about 20, but I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. Captain Shreve High School, which will be one of the first high schools that we implement, 5,243 in the morning with 2,762 speeding vehicles at a 53% rate. In the afternoon, 70% of the vehicles were speeding. 8,268 vehicles were traveled, 5,791 were speeding. Cattle Heights, 4,500 approximately, 2,300 speeding vehicles with 53% rate of people speeding. Traffic count in the afternoon, 5,300 with 3,100 speeders. That's 59% of the vehicles that travel down that road. Southern Hills on Kingston Road, 3,300 was the traffic count. 1,800 of those vehicles were speeding in the morning. That's 56%. 3,600 in the afternoon. 2,100 of those were speeding at 59%. Westwood Elementary on Jewella, 2,300 vehicles in the morning were speeding at 1,497. 63% of those vehicles were speeders. 3,700 in the afternoon. 2,500 were speeders. That's 67%. Crestwell Elementary on Highland Avenue, 1928, between the hours of 7 to 9, 982 of those vehicles were speeders. That's 51%. In the afternoons, it's 2,300 with 1,100 speeders. That's 47%. Green Oaks High School on Thomas Howard Drive, 962 was the traffic count, 693 of those vehicles were speeders at 72%. In the afternoon, it was 694 with 506 of those vehicles that were speeding at 73%. Atkins Elementary, which would be one of the first schools as well, 2,500 traffic count at 1,500 vehicles speeding. That's 60% of those vehicles. 3,100 in the afternoon with 2,000 vehicles speeding in the afternoon. That's 64%. Caddo Magnet High, 860 traffic count in the morning, 227 vehicles, only at 26%. 437 in the afternoon at 175 vehicles, 40%. Woodlawn, 269 vehicles in the morning, 109 speeding at 41%. 595 in the afternoon, 178, 30%. And that's just the first half of the schools that we'll be implementing. And you can obviously see that's a problem. The data reflects it. And the speed studies were done very recently, so this isn't old information. And so as a result of it, in order to reduce the speeders, Blue Line has gotten into a contract with the city of Shreveport to come up with a solution. Part of that solution is public information and education, and that's part of the reason why KPS Enterprises is involved. But we'll basically be doing school board meetings, community meetings, et cetera, to make people aware of the issue and also make them aware of the solution that's coming. So the photo speed warnings will start when school starts in the fall. So the first week of August, they'll start the warning period. So the first 10 schools that I just named will be the first 10 schools that those warning periods will begin. The next 10 will be Linwood Elementary, Calvary Baptist Academy, Summerfield Elementary, Cato Career Center, AMI Kids on Lakeshore Middle School, AMI Kids Lakeshore Middle School, Crestwell, Fairfield Elementary School, Riverside Elementary, Claiborne Fundamental Elementary, and Booker T. Washington. Phase 3, we're starting with Huntington. By the end of Phase 4, all schools within the city of Shreveport inside of Caddo Parish will be addressed. So the first, like I said, the first phase is what we're doing now is going out in the press. There's going to be a press conference on Friday when SPD does their quarterly press meetings. They'll also make the community and the citizens aware that the photo speed enforcement is coming. And then the warning starts. So there'll be a 30-day warning period. So it's not like we're going to put out the photo speed cameras and you're getting a citation next week. No, it'll be 30 days of actual warning to get you an opportunity to be aware that, oh, I am speeding, because maybe you don't know. Maybe because the enforcement hasn't been consistent. You hadn't hit anybody yet. Whatever the reason is, you may not be aware that you're going too fast in our school zones. So there'll be a 30-day warning period to get speeders to reduce their speeds. In addition to that, in those zones, there's 3 layers of identification to let people know to slow down. There's the signage that tells them this is the timing of the school zone and what the speed is. There's what they call an armadillo, which will show them the actual speed that they're going relative to the speed limit that should be in that particular school zone. And then there's, hey, there's a camera right here that's tracking your speed. And then after that 30-day period, then you'll start getting citations. So you get a lot of warning signs. There's a lot of information on the front end to make you aware that this enforcement is coming. And then there's a 30-day period where you'll get a notice in the mail if you were identified as a speeder. So there's multiple warnings, the school photo speed being enforced, the speed limit signs, and then the sign telling you to slow down and showing your speed. The technology that's being used is state-of-the-art technology. It's a lot more accurate and efficient than the handheld radar cameras. So these are LiDAR. They're calibrated daily. It's a single lane, it's stationary, it's pinpoint accuracy, so it's a laser, and it's 100% accurate in identifying the violator as far as the vehicle that was speeding in this particular school zone, in that specific lane, so there is no discrepancy. This is a sample, if you can see the slide, this is a sample of the image that is captured. So you get the vehicle, you get the license plate number, the date, the time, the speed, and it offers a clear plate so that the vehicle, it will not be in question. So it's not like, oh, well, I was driving close to this other vehicle, and it wasn't me that was speeding, it was a car in front of me, and I just turned on the street, and I really was only going 10 miles an hour. No, we got, the camera is very accurate in its details. This is a sample of what the citations look like. So the citations are created and mailed to the offender. And it shows a picture of the vehicle and the plate, and gives all the information related to the vehicle, as well as the location, the time, the date, et cetera. So they know all the details related to them speeding in the school zone. And additionally, what I failed to mention, it's for 10 miles and over. So if you're going 2 or 3 miles over in the school zone, you're not getting a citation for going 2 to 3 miles over. It's 10 miles or greater. So you're not just barely going over, like you're speeding, like it's clear you're going too fast where there are children. The citations are processed at Blue Line's corporate billing center. I've visited their site. It's state-of-the-art. They have quite a few processors. They've been doing this for quite a while. They're very good at what they do, and they're very professional. The contact center, when people call in, if they have disputes, they handle them very professionally. So it is a very effective, efficient, professional organization that handles photo speed enforcement. But the school zone speeding tickets are mailed and managed by a third party, being Blue Line, and their website is there. So if you have any additional questions regarding that process, feel free to inquire on that site or contact one of us. On average, the program has an average of 92% reduction in speeding in school zones. So 92%. So when you're looking at numbers like 964 traffic count, 4,600 speeders, that number now becomes 463 or less. That's significant, right? If we can cut that number in half, that's significant. If you can cut it by 25%, that's significant. So to be able to have a success rate of 92% is very impressive, and that's best in class when it comes to reduction in speeding. So that is essentially the end of the slideshow presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much for that. I think it bears mentioning that this is not something that the Caddo Parish School Board is overseeing. You're here as an informational visit,
Exactly.
a visit of courtesy to kind of keep us in the loop. This is a cooperation between Blue Line and the Shreveport Police Department. It just happens to be in front of school zones because that's where the speeding is happening.
Absolutely.
I won't mention in particular school, the numbers are there, but kind of startling on some of these. I mean, wow, so obviously the need is there. That being said, we're going to call on our board members who may have questions. Mr. Rochelle.
Thank you, Mr. President. Number one, I know y'all said that you're going to be doing all that you can to get notice out. As part of y'all's notification, because I'm going to ask the superintendent and his staff to also put this out, the information that has all of the numbers on there, okay? Are y'all providing that information out also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I think that this, the numbers tell a real story.
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to, obviously, I think that this, maybe even the whole report, but at the very least, this page ought to be, if it's not page 1, okay, it should be page 2 at most, okay?
Yeah. One thing I'll add is that our communication departments, Charnay McDonald's and Roy Murray, have worked very closely with this effort. Of course, appreciating that even though we don't have a fiscal benefit from this, we do appreciate the safety benefit of that.
Absolutely.
So we are doing everything we can to notify the families, because even though it's city of Shreveport, because it happens in a school zone, we're going to receive a lot of those calls. So it will be noted that we did communicate and make sure all families were aware. And I do appreciate that we do need to include some of that information around the why, because it's pretty obvious why we're doing this if you look at some of those numbers.
Yeah, and I will echo Dr. Gorey's statement. Charnay McDonald and Roy Murray, and also Mary Nashwood, have been extremely helpful in getting the information out. We sent out information letters to the parents of the students that attend the first 10 schools, but it was very specific to their school. Because they're most concerned about, who's speeding where my kid is going. Yeah. So we made sure that each one of those info letters had specific information related to the school. But yes, that is part of the information that we're putting out.
Okay, and you said one thing, and I think everybody kind of uses as a general guideline whenever, I'll speak for myself, you know, I typically try not to go, especially when I'm driving hundreds and hundreds of miles. You know, I'll go 5, 10, I don't ever go 10 miles above the speed limit because I've been told don't go. That's where they're going to give you the ticket. So there's actually a 10-mile-per-hour grace here, is correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I don't know that I would talk about that a whole bunch.
Right.
I hated to even mention it. And I'm just curious, because that's a pretty good leeway, especially when we have elementary students that are involved.
Right.
And is there any notification process with Blue Line that's, you know, that maybe between the, maybe 7 to 10, that's like, you know, hey, look, you know, this is FYI, you were speeding, we didn't give you a ticket, and we could.
Right. So, and you didn't see it in the slide, but this is me giving you guys the information of where the enforcement starts. The signage says what the speed limit is. The speed that is showing you you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever over the speed limit. The reason why, a part of the reason why enforcement starts at 10 is that it reduces your ability to dispute it. You know, it's hard to say, you know, I wasn't going 10 or 11 miles over. Like, no, you were going, like, even if you say that you weren't going 10, you were going at least 5, so you deserve this citation. So that it kind of, part of it has to do with the enforcement ability of it, giving them that little bit of a cushion. And then the other part is somewhat to do with how typically enforcement is done when it comes to speeding. Like you say, even when you're driving on, you know, the interstate, they may not always enforce it when it's under 10 miles an hour.
Okay.
So that's kind of part of the reason why it starts at 10, but the information that's in the presentation, as well as information we're giving to the community, we're not generally saying it starts at 10. But you guys are Caddo Parish School Board officers, fully transparent to give you all the details.
I don't even know what you're talking about anymore. I have no idea.
I got you.
Okay. This is superb. I'm going to give, there's probably others. This is great. Thank y'all so much for doing the study. Thank you for doing something about it. This is a big deal. It really is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rochelle. We're going to go ahead and let Mr. Abrams weigh in here.
Well, I had a question as far as the appeal process. Is there an appeal process?
Absolutely. There is an appeal process. What I did not mention, so every citation is approved, the initial citation is approved by an SPD officer. If there is an appeal, there is a court-type appeal process that Blue Line manages along with the city of Shreveport. So yes,
Okay.
there is an appeal process.
I know, from what I understand, some of the main issues is that a lot of people will tell you that that's not me driving that car. It was so-and-so that I loaned the car to, and the ticket is coming to me.
Correct.
And
So, yeah.
how do you deal with that?
Well, so there is an affidavit, as part of the appeals process, there is an affidavit that they would complete where they have to identify who was driving that vehicle. So if it's, because at the end of the day, it is your car, and you gave someone else permission to drive it, if they were to be involved in some other crime, you would have some liability potentially if you did not.
Nope. I disagree with that.
I'm just saying if
But
potentially.
I'll leave it with that.
But there is an affidavit, and I can let Deputy Chief White weigh in on here, but there is an affidavit form where they have to identify who was driving that vehicle.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Deputy Chief. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Great.
It's a pleasure to be here today. First of all, let me say the numbers are quite staggering. When you look at the numbers, all the speeders inside of our school zones. Unfortunately, Ms. Woodford and I, we had an incident years ago where we worked an incident where one of our children lost their lives in reference to a careless and reckless driver. So this is priority one to me, first and foremost, and my chief. Mr. Abrams, was it right? The appeals process, this is going to be totally administrative. It's not going through city court. The mayor is tasked with appointing a hearing officer who will hear these appeals. And if your vehicle is involved in one of these violations, I think it's incumbent on you to identify the person that was driving that car at the time. If not, then in my opinion, you're going to take that ride.
It won't stand up,
Yeah.
but go ahead.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Abrams? Okay. Ms. Bell?
Oh, okay. Okay, I have a few things to ask. Number one, say this word, L-I-D-A-R. How you say that?
LIDAR.
LIDAR. Radar.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I'm looking at the page where this picture, will one of these be placed in every school zone? Is this what you're talking about, the LIDAR? Is this it?
Yes, that is,
That will
yes.
be placed in every school zone,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, that's the one that's gonna take the pictures and tell us who's speeding, right?
Correct.
Okay, let's go to
Pull your
side.
mic down, Ms. Bell. Your mic.
Your mic.
Oh.
You're on, but you're not close.
That's that school teacher voice, sweetie. Okay,
I can
now-
hear you.
Okay. Okay, now, let's look at the citation. And you're saying that you're gonna mail these out, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the price? If the citation, that's a warning? What's
So-
the citation, gonna be a warning, first warning or
The-
two warning?
So the warning period is during the first 30 days of the program. So when they start the program in August, in those first 10 schools, so if they started August 3rd, because school's about to start here in a couple of weeks, then basically the citations won't start until September the 6th.
Okay,
So if you speed anytime during that warning period,
That
then
30 days.
those are warnings.
Okay,
But
after
in
that 30
September, then it's a citation.
okay, Mr.
Payment
Reynolds,
is
after
due.
that 30 days, and I'm speeding after the 30-day warning, that's when you're gonna hit me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now, now, I'm looking at your list here. And when you find time, okay, I know y'all got the schools here, the first group, then you got a second group. I'm looking at where 70, where Turner School is. There's a lot of walking from those apartments in different places. Did y'all do any kind of survey there?
Oh, Turner is on the list.
I
It's
don't
just not on this list that you see today. So,
Okay.
yeah, Turner and Huntington, they'll be in phase 3.
Phase 3,
Yes,
okay.
so-
Now, phase 1 gonna be how long before you get to phase 2 and phase, it's okay?
So phase 1, all of these schools should have their school zone cameras and everything set up by August the 3rd.
Oh, okay, then you go into phase.
Phase 2 should be mid to late August.
Okay,
Phase 3 should start in September. So all of them will have cameras before the end of the fall, actually before the break.
okay. And I'm like Mr. Rochelle said, I mean, this is great. This is something that need to be out there. And the warning should be given to parents, but it's more than parents. Because in the parish where I live in the country, trucks are coming left and right, big trucks, big trucks. And we will be doing that also, the trucks, anybody that's the speed zone will be
Yes,
doing.
absolutely, everybody.
Okay, I think this is great, okay, thank you.
One thing, Ms. Bell, I do want to reiterate, though, and Jonathan, you are our Colonel White, maybe want to follow up on this. This is a city of Shreveport effort, though, so this is
Oh,
only
it's not the
enforceable in the
parish.
city of Shreveport.
Correct.
Oh, so that's rewarding that Hill is not on here.
That is,
And
that's
the-
correct.
that's all-
Walnut Hill is in a unique situation because it's kind of, it splits. It's part of it. One lane, I think, is in the
But we
city,
know
the other
that
lane is in the parish.
Turner and Huntington is part of the city.
But Turner and Huntington, yes, so they will be part of it, but Walnut Hill is a little bit tricky.
And like Mr. White, Officer White said, I did have a student to get hit when I was teaching on the bicycle and got hit that morning and didn't make it. So I am so glad that you're doing this because they running, they late for work, they doing everything, they don't see it, okay? Thank you so much.
And I guess the fines will be the same as they are on the books now.
Correct.
Whatever the dollar amount would be.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Mr. Little?
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a strange mind. I mean, I see the advantages of this, but at the same time, I get some concerns about civil liberties and, you know, where that line, that personal line comes into play. What is this database connected to? Is there facial recognition software? Is this a local database only, or is it only license plates that'll be captured?
Yeah, so these are, they don't have, this is not facial recognition software.
Could it be, though?
I haven't been informed of that.
Okay.
So I haven't been informed of anything even similar to that. So I would suspect, I don't know what it can happen. You know, I just know right now it's not part of the camera, of the
Yeah,
LiDAR
but
camera.
just
It
say
doesn't have
there's a
that.
school shooting or an Amber Alert, the state police, the FBI step in. Can they take jurisdiction over this system and use it to recognize, you know, have facial recognition and have some alerts put in place?
Yeah, so these cameras are owned by the city of Shreveport, and Deputy Chief White can chime in on that. I'll defer to you if you have additional information.
Well, in reference to these cameras, if I'm not mistaken, they have the LPR capabilities. They'll be able to read tags, and of course, we could use that for our investigations. As far as the facial recognition, that's not a part of this software. We actually have a real-time crime center. Later on down the road, we're looking at that different type of technology like that. But as far as this photo speed enforcement, the primary focus is going to be photo speed enforcement.
And so the way the cameras are positioned, it's ideally for outbound traffic rather than oncoming traffic. So it's, it would be faced in lanes where traffic is moving past, so it would recognize a plate rather than oncoming lanes where it's recognizing a face.
Yes, you will have actually a camera in each lane, and like you said, as the vehicle is going away from the camera, that's when the picture is taken of the license plate.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, the LPR stands for license plate
Recognition.
So that's
Right.
yeah.
And then, so in places where this is implemented, there's probably they pay for themselves. I mean, these systems are expensive, but I would imagine they generate quite a lot of revenue.
And I'll say in reference to the revenue part of it, in law enforcement, we write tickets. We don't quote prices per se, and things of that nature. The revenue part of it, that'll be something that city government would have to address as far as the revenue.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Mr. Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for the presentation, Jonathan.
Yes, sir.
I'd like, my colleagues were started at the numbers, and I noticed a pattern that the incidents increased in the afternoon as well. I applaud what you are doing because there is concern. But my question is, what determined which phase you started? Was it the I guess, increase in occurrences, or where the issue was the worst, where you started, then you phased in those that were least?
That's correct. Yeah, the phase one started with the schools with the highest percentage of speeders, and then phase two, similar. So you'll notice phase 1 and 2, the numbers are pretty close, but phase 3 and 4, the speeders in those, with the exception of Huntington and Turner, the other schools in phase 3 and 4, the violators won't be they're significant, they're just not as significant.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Ryle.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do you know what the fines are going to be? How much?
From what I understand, they start at $100 and they go up in increments from there, but it's what the current fines are with the
It's going to start at $100?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. Well, I mean, if it's not enough to deter them, then it's not good. Now, you don't have to do this in Blanchard. No, because those policemen, they camped out at every school and they'll get you. They'll get you. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ryle. Dr. Dozart.
Thank you, President Nations. Some of my questions were answered listening to my board member. But I did want to know, if you, did you mention this to the motor vehicles department, where they could, I think, be on the alert when people are getting their license renewed, extra emphasis on the school zones in Cato?
No, there was no, I guess, collaboration with the Department of Motor Vehicles. I don't know that was considered. That's an interesting point, though. I'll make sure to make them aware of that.
I just wanted to call that to your attention. That I think it would help a lot, too, because many times when I would report in from some of my students from driving, they would put me on the alert about different tests and different things that happens in the community. Being an instructor, I had to kind of emphasize that to my students and also parents and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dozart. Ms. Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Reynolds,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at the Cooper Road, Thomas E. Howard. If somebody would have ever told me that many people come through there speeding, I would have never believed it. That's a lot of cars.
That's a lot.
I don't think I have that many students at Green Oaks. So I'm guessing this must be including some buses too.
This is every vehicle that comes down that street during that time period, whether they're parents, buses, truckers, people that are taking a shortcut to work, whatever.
And this is by the school, this is right kind of by the school?
Yes, it's on that street, passing the school. The times are from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., and then 2 to 4 p.m. So the morning time is the 7 to 9, the afternoon time is 2 to 4.
Gosh.
And this is the most recent set of speed studies. They performed the speed studies at this point probably 3 or 4 times because, again, council signed this ordinance in April of 2021. Prior to that, they had been working on it a year, so they had already had the data a year prior to that.
Okay.
And then since that time, they've done the speed studies at least twice to make sure that the data was recent leading into the implementation of the photo speed enforcement.
Okay, so the phase, I'm sure I'm in, this is phase 1 I'm looking at. I'm in phase 1 with Green Oaks High.
Yes, ma'am.
I can already know the calls I'm fixing to get about those things taking the pictures of the license plate. I almost want to move to phase 3 and let Miss Bell move to phase 1.
So,
now I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to be careful because they might take them down in my area if you're not careful.
I know, I'm very familiar.
Hey, you might want to be real careful about how y'all issue these citations. And I'm not being, and I know it's funny, but I'm really serious.
Trust me, I'm extremely familiar. But I will mention this, because while your percentage is high at 72%, you're saying the number of cars is high, but relative to some of the other numbers, you have 693 speeders, where some of these folks have 4,000.
Right. Yeah, they have larger number of kids getting to the area, and I understand that. But safety is a big issue. I'm safety first. However, I am concerned about when my parents get a ticket too.
They need to slow down.
Yeah, we're gonna have to really push them to slow down, because this is what we're doing. We're dealing with, high poverty, and I always keep that in mind as well.
Right.
So it's going to be tough for them to take. I don't want them to have to choose whether they pay a ticket or pay a bill.
I understand.
So by the same token, we're just going to have to put, I guess, Cato, not only we are Cato, we might have to put, I don't know, come up with another slogan.
We are slowing down the school zones.
Yeah, I don't know. But I know I'm fixing to get some. So when does phase 1 start, so I can be making some Facebook posts or something?
Right. So August 3rd, when school starts, is when the warning period. So they actually have 30 days to kind of change behavior. Anything you do for 21 consecutive days tends to be a habit. So if they can slow down for 30 days, then it may be in September they will have managed their behavior to follow the speed limit, or at least stay within 10 miles of it, so that they don't have to get the citation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I could jump in for one quick second and just add something to that. Everything that you speak to is what we spoke of in our first meetings, because we do have a community of high poverty.
Yeah.
We do have parents that are rushing, oftentimes late, and I think Ms. Bell said that people are very disconnected on cell phones, makeup, hair, everything now. So that's why, as a staff, we have really taken on the job of really helping to communicate this to family. That's why we think the grace period is important. But I appreciate that Mrs. Green with the Facebook post and doing everything we can.
Yeah, we're going to have to
people
push that.
know about it.
Right. And one more last thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, 2 more last things, but one more. That gets rid of that fella with that tall guy with that motorcycle that's always giving me tickets, pulling me over. Oh, he's still here? Oh, man. That joker have given me at least 3 tickets.
What'd you print?
That's a good one.
Oh, okay.
No, I was trying to make sure.
Yeah. Okay, I thought maybe that got rid of some of the people on the guys on the street doing the ticketing.
It will in some other school zones, but apparently not yours.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay. And one more last thing, I know you are the VP over at the bank, and you gave Green Oak, the bank gave Green Oak some money. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate you for providing my guys some monetary donation through the foundation or through the bank. I appreciate you.
We really appreciate you and Green Oaks and all of the citizens in North Shreveport. Carter Credit Union actually put a building inside of Southern University Business Incubator through the relationship with Darrin, Dixon, and others at the university. So,
Well, look, anything else you want to do, we're just right down the street. We do appreciate you.
There's some things in the pipeline.
All righty, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All righty.
Well, to your respective points, Ms. Green and Mr. Little, if they take the thing down, I guess we will have facial recognition. Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate our schools being in this area because we've complained and we've sat and watched the traffic over by Woodlawn. Slow traffic, but they love to speed through that area. And at Atkins, that's a high speed zone. They come through there, they don't ever pay any attention. But one of the things that when Ms. Green was talking, she did a PSA just a minute ago about finances. We have to keep in mind that you've got to recognize those placards that we see and the signs that we see traveling, they do mean something. I mean, my first ticket was on a holiday, and the man that gave me the ticket was saying one of their officers, gave me a ticket, and he wanted me to understand that I was traveling at a pace going a little too fast. And when I told him it was a holiday, he had to laugh himself. He said, well, I'm sorry. He said, but I'm on my job, and I'm doing what I do because there were no lights to tell us that there was a speed zone or a change in the zone. It was just the speed say slow down, this is a school zone. And in our area, there's not very much traffic for our children to go across the street because we don't have children in the area that cross over, but we have a speed zone there.
Right.
So in areas like that, will we start looking at those areas?
Yes, so, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it wasn't part of the presentation, but it's absolutely part of the process.
Right.
So more signage is being put up, the flashers, we'll have, because right now the flashers, you'll have the placard here, but the flashers don't necessarily show the time, and, it may be a little inconsistent. So through this program, there's going to be consistency, there'll be signage to identify the times that the flashers are flashing, and when the photo speed enforcement times are being implemented. So it will be very clear as to when the school zones are being enforced, as well as, if it's a holiday or a school break day. And that's part of the other things that we were doing is communicating with Ms. McDonald and Mary Nash Wood, is just knowing what the school bell times were, what days they have, all that kind of stuff. So all of this being part of this program to make sure that we're accurate in the assessment.
Okay. So as we look at Fairfield, that's in our area too, and the number and the traffic, we notice that the afternoons is real, they tend to slow down in the afternoon. I guess they work past the 4 o'clock hour, so they're not coming in home until after 5, so that changes that percentage in the afternoon. But in the morning, we do have a problem in that area, and we certainly appreciate what you all are doing. And we thank the SPD for what they do. Like Roy over there got their attention when I'm trying to make sure they know we thank them for what they do, and especially in our area. And we're looking for the sheriff. Can they pick up on this too for Ms. Bell out in the area where they live? Oh, that. Yeah, they had to do an ordinance to do it. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams.
So I'm clear on one of the board members to know that normally the speed limit is 10 miles per hour in the school zone, less than the regular speed limit.
Right.
So in actuality, people can actually go the regular speed limit by mistake and not get a ticket based on the way you're doing things. So Normally, the speed limit, like the speed limit is 35, the school zone, it drops to 25. If it's 25, it drops to 15, the way they operate. And that's why you see the 10-mile-per-hour distance. So you actually, you could almost go through a speed zone at your normal speed without getting a ticket, you know, based on the way you got it set up.
I mean, that's a somewhat, kind of. They would have to know that we're not enforcing it into 10
No,
miles per gallon.
I'm just
But
saying,
as far as
basically,
enforcement,
if you make a mistake, don't see it, don't know it, you'd be going your regular speed, and you may not get a ticket after you do that, so,
but yeah, that's possible, yes.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions, Assistant Chief, you coming to share with us some more?
Yes, sir. I'm quite sure you guys are aware of the staffing shortages that we have at SPD. And being 120-plus officers down, we have to be creative. We have to come up with other ways to give our citizens the services they deserve. And technology is one way that we're doing that. Having said that, I just wanted to introduce the best PIO in the whole wide world, Corporal Chris Bordelon. All right. And I thank y'all.
I was gonna make you guys aware. Appreciate y'all for having us. This Friday at 3 o'clock, we are planning to have our second quarterly press conference, and we are going to be introducing some of this information, and Blue Line Solutions is actually going to send one of their personnel, and they're going to give some more information on this. So it'll be live streamed on our Facebook page, and several of the media outlets will be there as well.
3 p.m. at what location?
It's going to be at the police station at 1234 Texas, so it'll be on the second floor.
Good deal. Okay, thank y'all so much.
Well,
we had another-
before I'm not sure if that's the end of questions, but if it is,
Were you on?
okay.
Well, you got to put a request in, so there you go.
You ready? With the news conference that you'll be having, this will give us a little bit more information on texting, students and texting? Students and texting.
That's going to be after the meeting. We're still.
That'll be out, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
we're still working on some of the logistics of the you're talking about the text messaging?
Yeah.
Yes, we have been in conversations trying to shore up the anonymity of the app, because that's the most important thing.
Okay.
That when we get that done, we want to make sure that it is truly anonymous.
We'll
because
we'll
that's-
wait on it. Looking forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, we hadn't forgot about it.
Okay, all right.
So that's the end of questions. Since we're doing introductions, my wife, Shonda Reynolds, I wanted to introduce her, since she's actually the owner and has the contract with Blue Line Solutions for the public information and education.
So you work for her now, John?
That is correct.
That was always the case, Jonathan.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate the information.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Woolfolk?
Okay.
That's gonna be real good with the.
Our second presentation comes from our Cato Director of Security, Mr. Roy Murry. Mr. Murry will be providing a safety and security update as requested by board members.
You know, I am with technology, but you're right.
I knew about that. I knew about it.
Okay.
As they're setting up the presentation, I do want to take this opportunity to just thank Mr. Murry for all of his efforts, certainly not only since I've been in this seat, but for many years of really helping us to make sure that we are at the forefront of school safety. I think it's also real important to thank him for his service, not only to Caddo Parish, but to our state. He is being increasingly called on for his expertise in this space across our state. So we are really fortunate and appreciate having him as a Caddo employee. Mr. Murry.
Thank you, Dr. Gorey, President Nation, school board members. I'm going to give you an overview and a safety and security update today, and if I can work this machinery, and I'm not promising you that I can, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about school safety strategy, our current resources, physical security, crisis management and emergency response, and then community partnerships, and then it'll be open for any questioning that you may have. First of all, there is no one thing that's going to make schools safe. And, you know, we've worked for a long time in this district to not just depend on one thing. And so we have built in Caddo Parish over the years a pretty complex security system. You know, you have to establish comprehensive safe school and crisis management plans. There has to be a relationship between behavior standards that are set in school and how discipline works in schools, providing adequate presence and supervision, and securing campuses and controlling access. I teach a class for SROs around the state, and one of the first things I tell them when I teach that class is there's really two things that make schools safe. And, you know, it's supervising the kids that are on your campus and the people that are visiting your campuses, and then controlling who comes on your campus and how they come and go on your campus. If you can do those two things, and you can do those two things reasonably well, then you can keep any school safe. But if you can't do one or the other, then it's really hard to keep any school safe. Right now, our current resources, a $9.4 million budget. Wow. That includes general fund. That includes the bond money that the voters approved for closing in our schools, and it also includes the ESSER funding that we're using. We have trained law enforcement officers now at all schools. We have security coordinators, probably about 75 total security coordinators on the middle and high school campuses. The 24-hour monitoring that's mentioned is our alarm monitoring system, so our schools are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are now moving into thermal camera imaging for our nights monitoring of the schools, so that we actually see someone approaching the school before they actually break into the schools. And so that's helped us. It's not on all schools yet. We're building it as we go, using some of that bond money in order to do that. But we're up to probably about 24 of our schools where we can do that. The department staff in the district consists of an investigator that does most personnel investigations, plus she's the person in charge of my Navigate 360 program, which we'll talk about a little bit. We have a security manager who is Mr. Otis, who is a 32-year retiree from the Shreveport Police Department. We also have technicians and project managers that manage our system, our camera system, our alarm system, that type of thing. Physical security. You know, the FBI, I guess it was the FBI after Columbine, they came out and they classified different businesses, different things, and they classified them as either a hard target or a soft target. And unfortunately, schools fell in the soft target range. And so what we've done over the years is try to come up with ways to harden the target. And so that's what our efforts have been set up to do, is to harden the target, to make it a place where someone would rather, unfortunately, would rather choose someplace else to do their meanness rather than come on the school campus to do it. Some of the things that we're still dealing with is the average age of our schools. The average age, I think, now has moved up to about 70 years. We haven't built any new schools since '84. That's correct. I believe that was Keithville and Donnie Bickham were the last two new schools built. So in order to try to secure 75-year-old schools, we've had to be very creative. We've had to do a lot of things in different ways. Steve White and the Capital Projects crew has been amazing. I mean, if you go and look at some of these campuses that were wide open, how they've closed in these campuses, now they've been pretty imaginative with some of the things and some of the ways they've had to do it, but we've managed to do it. And but it continues to be a problem for us. Temporary buildings are a problem for us, and trying to secure those things. And so the average age of our campuses and how they're set up, because all of our campuses were built for kids to walk to school. They were built for people to be able to approach the school from 100 different directions. And so we're trying to change and create single entry point schools out of schools that weren't built that way. Minimizing the number of entry and exit points on campuses is key. Again, that comes back to, can I control who comes on my campus and how they come onto my campus? Managing convenience versus security. I've always said, and I say this to principals and I've said this to different staff people, the biggest detriment, the biggest enemy of security is convenience. And unfortunately, if you look at the last big school shooting, which was the Uvalde school shooting, and I have the after-action report from that shooting, the thing that they got the school, unfortunately, most of the things that were directed on the Uvalde shooting was the response. That's caught the most traffic. That's caught the most heat. But there was a part of it where they talked about what the schools did and blocking doors open that were supposed to be locked. And that was a convenience thing, because I could go right out this door, I could run to the parking lot, I could do something at my car and get back in. And unfortunately, the door didn't lock behind them. And so, hindsight's 20/20, but we also have to look at these things that went on and see what we could do different to keep that from happening. Bonding capital projects funds being used to improve school security. Let me tell you something. We have spent in the last 4 years probably close to $7 million hardening the target, changing the way schools were set up, and yet we've caught heat. You know, it's amazing with the number of incidents that have gone on through the years that you would think when you go into a situation where you are hardening the target that you wouldn't get kickback from communities, but we do. And when we go in and add fences where fences didn't exist, when we go in and put an 8-foot fence where there was a 5-foot fence, we get kickback. But those are the things that we have to do in order to harden the target and to be able to control who comes and goes onto our campuses. Access control, camera systems, security staffing, all of those are part of the physical security setup. And we're now moving, and the thing about access control, camera systems, security staffing, it's not just the things, and that's what we have to understand. It's also policies and procedures that govern how you use these things that help us. The superintendent has directed all school directors to tell every principal and to mandate to every principal that teachers teach with their doors locked. That's part of physical security. There's not a school in the state of Louisiana, and there's certainly not a school in Caddo Parish that doesn't have access control on every door. And it's called a lock. It's called a lock. Every school, every door in every school in Caddo Parish has the ability to lock it. And I've got after-action reports for a lot of school shootings. And unfortunately, we plan for the possibility, not the probability. We have to plan for the possibility that a school shooting can happen, because it's probably not. It's probably not going to happen to us. If you look at the number of school shootings and the number of schools and the number of days you go to school, it's the least likely thing that's going to happen on a school campus. But that's what we have to plan for. And so we have to have policies and procedures in place to support all of the things that we're doing on campuses. If we kind of look at everything like we talked about, supervising students, supervising who's on your campus, controlling who comes and goes on your campuses, then you kind of get an idea of how all this physical security works. That's what access control does. It helps me control who comes and goes. It helps me control where they can come and go from. Camera systems, they help me supervise students. They help me supervise areas I may not be able to put a person at to look at. So I'm going to focus and have focused the school security in Caddo Parish on those two things. being able to supervise who's coming and going on my campus, and being able to control the access. The next thing, before I move on with that, I'll let you know, because I always get hit with this question, especially after a school shooting that happens somewhere, is why don't we have metal detectors on school campuses? And we, for years, superintendents, not only Dr. Gorey, but the superintendents before him and the superintendents before him, directed that all high schools and middle schools have to do random searches with handheld metal detectors on a weekly basis. And they have to report those random searches to my office. The biggest problem I always had with walk-through metal detectors is that they picked up everything. They picked up the nail files, they picked up the nail clippers, they picked up the cell phones. And as much as you tell kids to take everything out of your backpack, it costs manpower, it costs time, and trying to get kids in Byrd High School when you got 2,000 students and getting them into class to do a walk-through metal detector search took hours. Hours. We would never be able to do it. Well, technology has changed, and needless to say, I'm old and I can't keep up with it all, but they have now come out with a walk-through metal detector system. Actually, it's called a weapons detection system, and it's called Open Gate. We're in the process of being trained and testing the Open Gate system. It's a system that has been set up to be used in stadiums and different things like that allow people to walk through it at their normal pace. It's not going to pick up a cell phone. It's not going to pick up the nail clippers in your pocket, all of those things. So Monday, we're having training and testing of that. If that works out, then the plan is to move forward, and we will put an open gate in every high school in Caddo Parish this year. And we will have 4 extra open gate systems that we'll use as needed in middle schools and other locations. So, and then hopefully, if we prove that to be a success, then we'll move into the middle schools with the open gate. Crisis management. First, talk about Navigate 360. I guess Navigate 360 is our emergency response information portal. It is, I guess, the growth from the ERIP system that we started 10 years ago. And Navigate 360 is a place that has all of our crisis management information is located at. Shreveport Police Department, the Cato Sheriff's Office, the Fire Department all have access to the Navigate 360 program. They can pull up our information as far as our crisis response plans. We've even, and we're about finished with that, we have tied in our camera system to the mapping program that's on Navigate 360 so that in an emergency situation, SPD, the Sheriff's Office, Fire Department can actually pull up live footage on the Navigate 360 program, be able to see what's going on in the schools. Training. We have scenario-based training that is located on the Navigate 360, and the superintendent has again directed all directors to let their principals know that the expectation is that they use the scenario-based training at every faculty meeting. At least one scenario used every faculty meeting where it's discussed based upon your crisis response plan, what your reaction to that scenario should be. Hopefully, by doing it as often as that, every faculty meeting, we will be building response memory in our faculty and creating situational awareness. Emergency notification. The next thing that's coming out this year through the Navigate 360 is the Navigate 360 app, which allows every teacher, every person on that campus to be able to I guess, institute a crisis response, whether it be a medical emergency, whether it be an active shooter, whether it be a weather incident. Any teacher is able to activate, and everybody on that school campus will get the notification. In the terms of like an evacuation or a lockdown situation, if a lockdown is called, the teacher, we're tied into the student information system. Each teacher will have on their phone or their homeroom computer, their roster will pop up that will let them know they can check who's accounted for, who's not accounted for, And so the principal who has the master dashboard will be able to see how many of their students are accounted for, unaccounted for, that type of thing. So I think that'll be a great help to us. Situational awareness training. Superintendent said, you know, I've spoken around the state and at a lot of different places. My biggest thing that I think schools lack is situational awareness. I think teachers and, you know, and I can go back and I can point to different incidents that have not only happened here, but happened around the country, where it was obvious that situational awareness did not exist, or they did not pick up on it fast enough to do something. And so we have made it kind of a priority to do situational awareness training. And I've been very fortunate. I have the scenario-based system that's on Navigate 360, but also the teacher organizations, especially Red River United, has sponsored situational awareness training that I've done on Saturday mornings for anybody who want to come. And they have pushed to their membership, as CAE and the others have, to be at that training. So we've had several successful trainings, and I've already had one principal call that's wanting me to do a Saturday training at her school as quickly as we can do that. So I'll get with the organizations to put the word out to their members, but it's something that I think we have to do, and we have to get better at. And there are so many things being pushed down on teachers as far as training, as far as things they have to learn, coming from the state, coming from the district, that we have to find a way to get training for security and safety in there. And by using the faculty meetings and by having the organizations help me with Saturday trainings, we've been able to do that, and hopefully we'll continue to do those things. Assessments conducted by the security department. Threat assessments. You know, we talked about, after COVID, the mental health crisis that everybody was talking about. I want to give you an example. Of course, we've done some things through technology. We have Lightspeed system, which is a system that is set up that if anyone is on any of our computers, any of our devices that are tied into the system, if they research certain websites, if they pull up how to commit suicide, how to kill my teacher, any of those things, then we're all notified about it. And we take threats seriously. And if you look back at all the different things that have happened where they say there's been mental health issues and the district knew about it, but they didn't share it with the police department, or the police department knew it and they didn't share it with the district. We don't have that here, thankfully. Shreveport PD has a mental health unit, and we work very closely with their mental health unit. They call us with things that they have picked up on social media. We have a social media person that works through the juvenile court that has contacted us about when kids are posting pictures with guns and helping us identify who those kids are. But, through the Lightspeed system, working with SPD, last year we did 949 threat assessments. 949 threat assessments. The year before, we did 329. So there are issues out there with threats and mental health issues, but we are taking them all seriously. And the district psychologist is involved in it. Every school has a threat assessment team that's set up that are doing assessments. And so we're taking the threats seriously, and we're not just listening to the assessment, we're actually making recommendations to the parents, to the district, and through attendance on what has to happen. We're in the process right now of doing safety and security assessments. I started that last year. We got probably about 10 of our schools done. We will try to get the rest of our schools, the assessment finished on them before the midterm gets here. We're doing assessments on campus access and vulnerability, which is helping us prioritize what schools come next as far as closing them in and doing the things that we can do to create single entry point schools. and crisis readiness assessments are another assessment that we're doing. We basically use the scenarios to test crisis readiness, where we go into a school, we pick 10 or 12 teachers, some aides, custodial staff, run them through scenarios, and then we give the principal an honest opinion of where we think they are as far as crisis readiness. Our crisis response plans, I know that was one of the things that came up that, and Dr. Vinson's absolutely right. I'm probably not going to tell you what my plans are. So I'm going to let you know that the district has always had an emergency response plan. It's been required by law for 25 years, so we've always had one. In 2010, we got a Readiness and Emergency Management Schools grant, which allowed us to bring in an outside consulting firm, and they upgraded and reviewed and revised all of our crisis response plans and brought them up to a national standard, which the national standard is that it's an all-hazard plan that meets NIMS guidelines. I love all these acronyms. NIMS is the National Incident Management System. And in order for it to meet their guidelines, it has to cover all 4 phases of emergency management: prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. And our plans do that. And our plans are reviewed every year by law enforcement and by Homeland Security. Plans are living documents, and they're frequently updated. And I have to talk about after-action plans, after-action reports, excuse me. And those are what causes most of the changes to our crisis response plan every year. And an after-action report usually looks like something like this. And this is a small one. This was only 30 pages. And this is from Uvalde. And now they've issued another one from Uvalde that's 77 pages, and I've got that one too, and I just haven't finished reviewing it yet. I've got after-action reports from Parkland. I've had after-action reports from Sandy Hook. And what we have to do, and I tell this to the police officers that I work with around the state and the ones that I work with in the district, we have to take advantage of what happened to somebody else. Because if we don't, then we're missing the opportunity to improve our security. And I have to look at, and like I said, in this Uvalde, the primary fault is being placed on the response. But there were things that happened at that school that allowed that incident to happen the way it happened. And those are the things that we have to look at. We have to look at it, and I tell every SRO that works on our campus, I want you to look at this report, and I want you to look at what your school does, and I want you to tell me, could it happen at your school? But I don't want you to just tell me, could it happen? If you think it could, then I want you to tell me what we could do different. And then we'll make the changes. After Parkland, you know what happened in Parkland? He pulled the fire alarm to get people out in the hallway. And it's always been the policy of most districts, when the fire alarm goes off, you get up and evacuate, right? You go to your designated spot.
We changed that.
And we changed that. We changed that. Because I'm going to say this. Everybody ought to be a fireman, truly, because there's been nobody die in a school fire in 75 years. And we do 10 fire drills a year. You can look around here, and you can see exit signs marked. You can see flashing lights. Probably got a fire pool in here somewhere. And you just had 21 kids killed, and we're required to do 3 drills. And we're required to do 3 drills. Everybody ought to be a fireman, because they must like the fireman, and it's enforced. And so what we have to do is we have to take these things and we have to learn from them. And what we did is we changed what you do on a fire alarm. You stand up and prepare to evacuate, but if you don't see smoke, you don't see fire, then you wait to be told. And we should have learned it before that, because in Jonesboro, Arkansas, back in the 90s, 2 middle school kids pulled the fire alarm to get people out and shot them from the hillside. So we should have made the changes a long time before Parkland. So we have to take advantage of the things that help us learn to help us get better. We continuously collaborate with law enforcement. We have SPD, a former, there's a SRO there, works at Captain Shree. Deputy Chief that just left out of here was a former SRO. So we have a great connection with law enforcement. We just left a meeting where their law enforcement is planning to do a full-scale drill on a school shooting later in this school year. Our agencies, law enforcement agencies, SPD trains with the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office trains with SPD on active shooter. All of their plans are the same. They've trained on our campuses. I work with training SROs locally and across the state, and now with 3 of our board members, I believe, I'm participating in the Joint Advisory Committee on Community Safety. And I certainly think they probably bring more to the table than I do at being there. Although Mary Trammell points to me quite a bit in that meeting. So that's just some of our community partnerships that we work with. Now I'll answer any questions that you may have.
All right, Mr. Rochelle.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first question I have, and is on page, it has to do with page 6, your crisis management. It says situational awareness training available. You came back to, you hammered on it a little bit more. The key word that I'm picking up on here is available. Do we not have anything other than just the 3 drills that we do a year?
No. That basically what I said, with the scenario-based training, the scenarios that are on Navigate 360, the superintendent has directed all schools that they will do the scenario-based training during their faculty meeting. And I wish I put it on here. I mean, basically, you get a scenario, maybe an audio scenario that says you're standing out in the hallway, you're a teacher, you got students out there, you hear this sound, and what you hear is 3 gunshots. And then the question is, what are you going to do? And you got 30 seconds. When I do the situational awareness class where it's done on a Saturday, I bring in law enforcement. They'll shoot movie blanks inside buildings so that school teachers and school personnel knows what it sounds like to build them. And it sounds different. We all think it's going to sound like it does on the movies, and it doesn't. Especially when it's on the 2nd floor and you're on the 1st floor, they're in the bathroom and you're in your classroom. What we try to build in situational awareness classes is this is not normal. And the first thing I do in teaching situational awareness, and the first thing that happened when I was in law enforcement, when I was in the military, when they're teaching situational awareness, is what's not normal. So first you have to establish normal. And once you've established normal, then when something's not normal, then do something. And what we tried to express to them, especially in situational awareness classes in school, is based upon your crisis response plan. When it's not normal, when you think this is what it is, what are you going to do? And so, yes, we do training. However often schools have faculty meetings.
It's about once a month.
You know, and so they're getting scenario-based training then, and then through working with the teacher organizations, I do Saturday trainings. That's when it's available, because I can't force a teacher to come to a Saturday training where she's going to spend 4 hours with me instead of watching cartoons in the morning, or whatever they do on Saturday.
Okay. Just when I read that available, it's like, but it's, we do have a, obviously, almost a monthly basis.
Right.
The light speed that you mentioned, that y'all had over 900 hits.
Light speed's not the only thing that led to it. It led to a big increase in our numbers, though. And light speed is something that is through the technology department. And so it basically picks up on keywords or websites that people go to, that type of thing.
My question on that is, of the 900 or so, how many of them, you may not know the answer, and if you do, you may not feel comfortable saying it, and that's okay also, is how many of those do we feel were actually credible?
You know, I really can't answer percentage-wise, but I will say this: most of them were suicidal threats, and you know, we're going to follow up with every suicidal threat as best we can. So I mean, I think when you look at someone researching how to commit suicide, that type of thing, or saying on their email thing that they're going to kill themselves or hurt themselves, we're taking all of those seriously. They're meeting with the psychologist, there's always recommendations for follow-up care, and the recommendation may be to commit at a certain point, but there's always recommendations for follow-up care. If it's a homicidal threat, we're involving law enforcement immediately, and it's going to be investigated on the law enforcement side, plus it's going to be investigated by us. So to say how many were actually credible, we made a lot of arrests on threats this year that went to juvenile court, and each person was charged with terroristic threats. Now, what comes of it from juvenile court, we don't know because the juvenile record is sealed.
Yeah.
But we know that anytime there is a threat of homicide or that type of thing, it's all taken seriously. And we've been very fortunate. The white-collar crime group with the sheriff's office and the Shreveport Police Department have excellent technology people. And, this thing of I can do this anonymously and nobody's going to know, it's not usually right. We can usually track it down to an IP address or something like that. So they've been very successful. And so I'm going to say the majority of the threats that we've done assessments on have been suicidal type threats. And all the homicide threats that we've done investigations on generally have resulted in arrest.
Very preventative, very preventative.
I mean, we just have to take it seriously because we don't know. There's no way that we can go.
And I want to thank you, Dr. Gorey, for bringing Mr. Murry in, because and what brought it about was actually the Uvalde deal, and then I had mentioned university, and I can only assume, and I don't want to assume, is that we may have a follow-up
Sure,
on that. We don't have to go into any details on that at all right here, right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rochelle. Mr. Little.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Murry, for making a presentation. This has been great information. It's been very timely. And it sounds like you've put together a very thoughtful program. If you don't mind, I do have some questions.
Sure.
If the answer is privileged, please elect not to answer it.
Okay.
So, I think we would all agree that sometimes the best offense is best defense is a strong offense. And I look at things like the Air Marshal program that was post 9/11.
Sure.
The thought of having an armed, undercover, trained individual in there serves as a deterrent. Is there a possibility of and maybe it's being done, but randomly having armed law enforcement that are maybe blend in the background, that are randomly on campus?
Sure.
Would there be a benefit for something like that?
We've brought in, we normally bring in, anytime there's a threat of homicide or that type of thing, I'm gonna shoot up the school type of thing. We normally bring in other police officers, and sometimes they are plainclothes officers that come in. But no, I mean, as far as, using, it really hasn't been done. There's been talk. I know the sheriff came out at one time, talked about arming teachers, that type of thing. They have a Guardian program in Texas where they arm teachers and that type of thing. I'm very uncomfortable with untrained people now, and that's not your question.
That's not my question.
Your question. And so, I think it's something that we could consider. I think it's something that, dealing with both departments that have manpower shortages, I'm very fortunate to get the number of folks that I do have working in the schools. But they have certainly, our law enforcement partners have certainly been cooperative anytime that we feel there is a need. And certainly if we feel that there's a need to do something like that, then that's, unfortunately, there's not a lot of warning with this type of thing. And, the biggest thing that if the board could grant me anything, it would be the ability to read minds. If y'all could give me that, then I could do a whole lot more.
Omniscience.
That would be a whole lot more that I could do.
Omniscience. Yeah, so in another question, we spoke earlier in an unrelated discussion about facial recognition software. We have our students' faces in a database, and frequently the threats are internal, not external. And again, don't answer this if it's inappropriate, but if a student who is on a watch list or is a student of concern or even a faculty member, if maybe they've been asked to stay home or maybe they've been referred to counseling, if this individual shows up on campus, would the system potentially alert?
I will say this, our system has a lot of analytics built into it.
Okay.
But I would say this also, if we're going to create single entry point schools, and we've done that with quite a few schools, you have to back that up with having each one of those single entry points monitored, not only by the camera system, but by bodies being there. And so hopefully, if we're having that type of thing, then that person monitoring that area, security person monitoring that area, knows who's coming and going and who should be on the cameras. But I will say that our camera system has a lot of analytics.
Okay, and sometimes it's not just students. I mean, it may be a parent who has made a threat to a faculty member.
You don't think we've dealt with those, do you?
Yeah, we've gotten calls from some of them, but, I mean, if there's a way that, in linked to faculty cell phones, so almost like an Amber Alert, the entire faculty might get an alert. We've got a potential.
Our Navigate 360 app, I think, is going to fit a lot of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, you had spoken about the required 3 times per year fire drills.
No, 10 times a year.
Oh, 10 times per year.
3 times for emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
Would there be an interest in having the board put together a requirement for active shooter drills?
You know,
Or is that state?
Normally what those drills are, the normally the 3 emergency preparedness drills are going to deal with that type of incident. Okay. That's normally what their drills are dealing with. It's dealing with lockdowns and that type of thing, which is basically them following the protocol for what they would do in an active shooter situation.
Okay, and this is my last question, I promise. And I know you and I have spoken in the past about supplemental door lock systems.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are some areas that have claimed that additional barricade has prevented additional deaths, because when you have an assailant on campus, they're going door to door, and they're not going to jimmy a lock.
Right.
They may try to kick, and if the frame breaks, they have entry.
Sure.
But
I do think there are systems that are out there that can work. Unfortunately, again, this is where the age of our schools come in, because the particular device that we talked about, which the device itself is reasonably inexpensive compared to some of the other things that are out there. But the problem is it drills down into the floor, and it has to drop down into a floor. And the number of our schools that have asbestos tile, then once we start drilling down, then we have to abate the school. And that least expensive item now all of a sudden is not least expensive anymore. And so, yeah, we look at a lot of different devices. I've got 2 or 3 of them in my office right now. And it's, the good thing, I guess, the good thing is that I don't know of a school shooting, and I've researched a lot of them and looked at a lot, but I don't know of a school shooting where the shooter took time to try to get into a locked door. Because they know a response is coming, and hopefully the response is going to be better than Uvalde. And they know a response is coming. And in most incidents, Uvalde, unfortunately, was an outlier. Because most school shootings are over within about 4 minutes. And that is the reason why I didn't want to depend on response. And that's why I requested to the superintendent, requested to you as board members, to put a police officer on every campus. I would much rather have one there than to be waiting for one. And so our biggest thing now with our police officers is to follow up with training and to make sure, and I'm sure Anthony can testify, that their department does not want anything like happened in Uvalde to happen in Shreveport or Caddo Parish. And so there's going to be additional training for SROs and that type of thing. But certainly we're going to always be looking for different ways to harden targets. And if we can do it, and we'll talk about locks. We're changing out locks. We're going to change out crash bars that can't be dogged down, so that you can't dog a door down that's supposed to be locked. We're looking at changing out classroom locks so that the only way that you can unlock it is with a key. Once you take that key out, that door's locked, and it's going to stay locked. So we're going to take away things that people have to think about in an emergency situation. They don't have to find their key to go out and lock a door. The door's going to be locked automatically. So Steve White and his bunch have been great, and he's working on that with the locking systems right now, which will help us harden that target.
Thank you.
Mr. Little, is that it?
Thank you.
Mr. Rawl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of questions. What's our SRO staff? Don't we have them in all high schools?
All high schools, we got a police officer in every school.
Okay, we got a police officer in every school. Okay. Now, last thing, explain to me this open gate scenario you were talking about, and this new metal detector
Open
thing.
gate, it basically where the old walk-through metal detectors was a square thing and you had to walk through the thing. Open gate is basically 2 columns. And I can't explain to you how it works. I wish I could, and I may be able to explain more after Monday, after the guy comes and trains me on it a little bit. But basically, it is supposed to pick up a weapon, and it has to do with the amount of metal in a gun and all of those type of things. It's not going to pick up your cell phone. It may pick up a laptop if the laptop's big enough, but we will test all of those items to see what will set it off. We will make sure that when we use it, that if student has a laptop, we will tell them to take it out of their backpack, put it on a table as they're passing by, and they should be able to walk through. And what we're hoping to be able to do is every school that we have made a single entry point school to is to have that device set up at the door. So everybody coming in, that includes parents, that includes visitors and vendors, everyone is going through that. And so come Monday, if you want to come down to my office at 1 o'clock, we're going to test it, Mr. Rowell. You can come see how it works. And that guy can tell you how it's going to work.
Continuation of that question. How do you make a single entry point school out of something like North Cato and Northwood? How do you do that?
Go to each one of them right now. It's being done as we speak. We are using, we have to use fencing in a lot of cases. North Cato, especially the way it's built with the wing system and that type of thing, we're fencing across the front, we're fencing down the sides, we're fencing the back of it. We're going to put access control on each wing door. And you're going to have a door portal when they unload and come in the front, that they either have to be buzzed in or they have card access to get in. On the gate on the side of North Cato, it's going to be a buzz in or a card access to get into the gate. Northwood, if you go and look at, I'm going to say CMCT, for instance.
And Northside's good too.
Northside's good. Yeah, but CMCT is more of what you're going to see at Northwood, especially on that bottom part down there. You're going to see different door portals. They're right there. And same up at the top part. And then in the back of the school, we use fencing and door portals.
Okay, thank you.
Steve White, he's pretty imaginative. Now, I'm going to say some of it, I'll go, ooh, but he can.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rowell. Mr. Trammell.
Mr. Murry.
Yes, Mr. Trammell.
I was going to ask you about the open gate, but I thank you. We thank you for being so compassionate about your delivery today.
You're welcome.
But with students, if they know something, do we have a point at every school where they can release it or make sure someone is aware that they have something that's going on? I know, like, I've sent you pictures that I've received from parents that say, pay attention to this. This was in Instagram. My daughter had this. They had this video. And when we send them, how do y'all follow up? I've been trying to figure that out.
Well, a lot of it, the school can identify who's in the videos, if that's what you're talking about.
Right, okay.
And then also, we have a contact with the juvenile court and with the Shreveport Police Department. I think she's actually going to work for the Shreveport Police Department now in the Real Crime Center. And she has built up a catalog of different things. And every time she finds someone she can't identify, then we send it out to schools. They try to identify that person, flashing the gun, that type of thing. But we also have set up through the Let's Talk an anonymous reporting system, and using what is the QR code. That's right. Where they just, and so we have an anonymous reporting system. Now, there is a push through Navigate 360 that's going to come up with an anonymous reporting system, and we'll just have to see which works better for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we don't want to know everything, but
Sure.
just this is a question that I'm asked a lot about from parents. Do we pay attention to verbiage?
Sure.
So when we make like a vocabulary of words and stuff that's new, because they change every day, and you're not really certain what they're talking about or what it applies to.
Sure.
So we just related words, we know this kind of stuff.
There are several programs out there, because a lot of it's social media stuff.
Right.
And there are a lot of programs out there. The state police, and I really want to say it's called the Guardian System or something like that. And I get a lot of tips through the state police, and it's all set up on word recognition. And so, they're apparently a lot younger than I am because they keep up with all the new slang and all the things that go on that are being said.
Right.
And so they'll send a report, and they actually have been very good about being able to track IP addresses and that type of thing. So we get a lot of information from our law enforcement partners out there, but you know, our own technology people are pretty good, and the light speed system, as far as if they do any of it that's on our system and that type of thing. So we get, you know, it keys on keywords, and they're updating those words all the time.
Okay, one time, you know, just seeing certain bandanas was an alert.
Sure.
But now they've got clothing, tennis, you name it, they've got different directions that they go in. So we
as soon as we catch up with
sort
it,
of,
they've changed it, so.
okay, so we
Yeah.
sort of onto that.
Sure.
Okay, well, that works. All
Thank you,
right.
Ms. Trammell.
Thank you.
Ms. Bell.
Okay, I have a couple of things to ask. Okay, and the reason I use District 12, because we have 1,000 students in each one of our schools, you know that. Now, how do you put your SRO and security coordinators? Like, for instance, one that here is at 1,500. Okay, let's just take another school, I don't know, Woodlawn or somebody like that with less than, I don't know how many, 800 or 900. Do you go by the number? Or you just, if you put 3 here, you're gonna put 3 at Walnut Hill or what?
We've never based the number of security people on numbers, never have. We've based it on incidents and the amount of problems that we've had at particular schools. And that may not be the way to do it, I'm not saying that it's the right way. I'm just telling you that's the way that we've done it. If there's a school, Magnet High, which had 1,300 for years, just had one security coordinator, because they didn't have anything that happened out there that we needed a security coordinator for. Whereas there was another school that may not have but 400 that were fighting every day. And so we did it based upon need more than anything else. And of course, the police officer, there's one at every school. Now, you know, there's probably some schools that we may need 2 police officers, but we're gonna stick with the one right now.
Okay, let's,
One thing there, Ms. Bell, and Mr. Murray does a wonderful job where there is a process where if a staff of a school working through their executive director of schools feel they need more support, they can request that Mr. Murray and his team do a great job of going out assessing the safety. And sometimes they come back and say, hey, Doc, we need to add one there. And sometimes they don't. They look at how we've improved processes so that they are safe. But that's something that we pretty much have a pretty good process of managing.
And if there are particular incidents that go on, we may beef up their security for a period of time until we can calm down whatever the issue is. And we've done that several times.
okay. The reason I asked that question is because I'm looking at Walnut Hill and all those T buildings, okay? Okay, you got your security coordinators in different places in police, but is there a special one you put back there in the back? There's a part that, here I go with the country again. This side is open, that side I don't care.
Sure.
Regardless of what, they can get in. It's out in the country, you can get in. That's the reason I was looking at the number. You know, maybe that's, you know, and I think about it, I'm not, you know.
I understand.
But you got to look at the fact that it may not never happen, nothing happen there. We don't know. We don't know what's gonna happen.
That's true.
But is there somebody there to say, in the back, I'm gonna have somebody there watching that gate, around there.
Sure.
You see, that's the reason I said that. It's
Yeah.
too open. Some of these schools are open.
Sure.
And I'm saying.
And Walnut Hill's not the only one. You got Herndon up there.
That's right. Okay, that's what I'm talking about, in the
You got
country.
response times and different things like that. All those things are considered, and both Herndon and Walnut Hill are on Steve White's list for closing them in, so.
Oh, okay, they on that, what is that, open gate, whatever you
And Roy, I
say?
think it's important to know too, they create the biggest challenge as we've looked at how do you close in, you know,
Okay, that's
schools
one of
that
the
are on that big of a footprint of
Yeah.
land.
And, and let me say this, and I'll answer whatever questions that you have, but, there's 3 levels of security. There's perimeter security, which is the whole campus, there's building security, and there's room security. We gotta get really good at 2 out of 3.
Right.
Because you're never gonna be able to build enough fence to close in some of these campuses.
Not Walnut Hill.
being
The
one.
football field.
I know,
another.
not that football fields, I
You
know.
know, Southwood, all of those campuses with the huge footprint, So we have to get really good at 2 out of 3. Let's take care of our buildings and let's take care of our classrooms and make sure we do a real good job of closing those in.
Okay. Okay, like everybody been looking at the things that's happening in those different schools where the people have been shooting up and that stuff. And then you look at the fact that we talk about Crime Stopper in the adult situation. A lot of students, and when you read about what this student, why one of them that shot up, said he talked about shooting up the school, he was during that time during the school. Have we, and this may be something to do with the police department on, have we ever thought about
We're in the process
These
now.
ki-
SPD's in the process now.
doing a Crime Stopper for youth?
Yes, ma'am. They're in the process now,
Okay.
working through that.
That sounds good.
That's one of the things that they'll probably talk about at this next press conference.
Okay, so they think about,
But they're in the
okay.
process of trying to work through that, to figure it out.
The reason I'm so glad to hear that, because the kids know, sometime on at night, they know who's mad, who's fussing, who mad at each other,
And
who's
they'll tell you
fighting,
for money.
and it comes to school. But they will go back and tell. And another thing, are your counselors aware? Some children will go to that counselor and say, this person, are they aware that they can tell it without?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I mean, it's, we're trying to empower all people on school campuses, and that, that day of way back in the when the principal said, I'm the only one that can call 911, I'm the only one that can put the school on lockdown, those days are gone. And we're working with these principals, and the young principals are doing an excellent job of empowering their staff, and we share with law enforcement the things that we know we can share with them. And, we're always, when it comes to safety of the school, safety of another kid, we're going to do what we have to do. If that involves law enforcement and that involves whoever, we're going to do those things.
Well, I just want to say, if y'all do that Crime Stoppers,
Yeah.
they're going to help. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Dr. Gorey?
Right, before we go on, I do want to take this opportunity, of course, earlier we spoke about this committee, and what I want you to know is that our community is working collaboratively, whether you're looking at our sheriff's department, our parish, as well as our school system, all working together to make sure that we are as proactive as we can be with crime in our community, also with violence in our schools, and it's called the Joint Advisory Committee on Community Safety, and I certainly want to thank Mr. Murray, he's representing staff on that, but also want to certainly thank Board Members Thorpe and Board Member Trammell, who are representing the school board on that committee too. So again, there is a conversation where we work collaboratively, which is so important that we as a community come together and really own this as everybody's problem, and how do we all work closely together. So thank them for their leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Appreciate you very much. Ms. Woolfolk?
Our final presentation comes from Chris Chandler, founder and CEO of the American Millennium Project. He will be coming before the board to provide a thank you to members for their support of the project in Cato schools. And at the conclusion, this will conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Woolfolk.
Mr. Chandler.
Good afternoon, everybody. That was a very heady presentation before me. I hate to come behind something like that, but I'm bringing good news, okay? So I've been working on a project for 22 years. I'm a Shreveport native, went to Cresswell, Arthur Circle, Uri Drive, Middle Magnet, first graduating class, Magnet High School, and stayed for university here in Shreveport. So I'm a native. Business person for many years, retired. I run a national nonprofit today that I started 22 years ago, and it's an education initiative. And my heart is in helping my community of Shreveport, and in asking myself that the only thing I could conclude that I could have a difference in is in the educational field as a retired business person teaching. I have created a club, a student organization. It's a private group. It's available for all middle school and high school students, as well as college later on. The American Millennium Project clubs are just like a beta club or a key club. They're just a private club. It's a student option to join or not. The students that join my club, I teach local history and local culture to our local people. That's the mission of my organization, local history. It's never been taught before. It's not taught anywhere around the country. We all have fallen into the model of teaching state history, U.S. history, and world history. but we don't teach in the local communities our own citizens, our own children, our own youth about the community that they're growing up in. AMP does that, and we do that through tours. So I don't have a curriculum that goes into the school that has to be approved. History is a very touchy word all around the country. Critical race, all the different things that come in to say, wait, we don't want to touch this project because it mentions history, and that's too big of a hotbed issue. So for those reasons, I've been getting a lot of resistance. I understand that. I teach a local historical and cultural perspective that I've studied for many years, that I've worked with and read all of the history books on the Shreveport community, worked with local historians, worked with professors, teachers to develop my programs. So we have put together a really phenomenal student organization that we want to make available to every middle school and high school in Caddo. And we have gotten that opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Gorey. We've been vetted. We have been looked at. We have presented our programs. We have gone through the processes. And we are ready to take local student groups on our tour buses in the local community, teaching on-site at our historical sites. When they're finished with the tour, they know Shreveport like they just have never, they're amazed at what they learn about their local community. It creates a bond to the community. The kids are so excited. I'm going to share with each of you at a later time, I'm going to send you the feedback from my students and my teachers who have been on my tours and experienced them. They sell it way better than I ever could, but the feedback from the students is phenomenal. This year we only got to do 2 tours, Southwood High School and Woodlawn High School. Both got to go on an AMP tour. I took both groups to the downtown tour. We saw the 7 wonders of downtown. They had a meal together after the tour, and then they did a community service project, and then we took them back to campus. It's literally, the AMP tour is twice a year, once in the fall semester, once in the spring. The students in the club do leave campus. I know that's tough to arrange, and I know the community and the school board over the years has gone away from field trips. They've kind of been taken away. I hope y'all realize that social and emotional development is what our students are lacking and needing. Our club offers that in a great way to the students, and we really want to bring this to every middle and high school in the parish. I'm also developing it across the state. We're in 7 parishes now across Louisiana. We have a model that we've built from Caddo Parish that's spreading around the state and around the country next year. I am available to answer any questions. I have emailed all of you multiple times over the last 2 years, and I know it's been a terrible time to bring a new project to Caddo Parish schools during COVID. But I'm here and I want to see this through, and we're going to keep pushing it. I have a video from a little young Woodlawn student. The group goes on my tour. I ask them to take out their phones. We're going to go to 7 wonders of Shreveport today on the tour. I want you all to take pictures and videos and submit your best ones to me at the end of the tour. This young man at Woodlawn High School put together a TikTok video with no instruction by me, other than what I just said there. Encourage them to record what they're seeing today, because they're going to see things they've never seen before. He put together this video, and I'm going to let you guys, y'all have my email address and my phone number. If y'all are interested, text me and I will send you his TikTok video. It's about 25 seconds. It'll blow you away. You'll be in tears when you finish it. The young boy labeled it the Shreveport Tour to Save and Change Lives. That was his words. And the video and the presentation and the music that he dubbed behind it, Sam Cooke. Okay, it'll tell you the impact that the tours give to the students. And the students go back to school and share what they learned with the other students that weren't on the bus. And they become the teachers. It's all built into my program. The mission of Caddo Parish Schools is to collaborate with the community and the business world and the families, and to help the students not only in academics but in their social development. Guys, I am a opportunity for Caddo Parish Schools. I hope y'all see it as that. I want to be vetted by everybody that wants to vet me. I understand, Chris, what kind of history are you teaching? Tell me what you're teaching. I'm going to invite the school board, Murry. When I met with you 2 years ago, we talked about asking the school board to go on one of my tours so I could show y'all It would be a fantastic 2-3 hours if y'all could go with me on a tour. I would love to do that with y'all. And you could see what we teach and how we do it. Our leadership program, character program, our financial literacy program, and our mentorship with the alumni from each school is a program we've developed in addition to the tours. So we have a lot of bells and whistles with the A&P Club. It's well thought out, and I just hope I can have all of y'all's support and help in encouraging the principals to give me a shot to bring this to their schools, because I know they're making the final decision. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We do have a few on the queue. Mr. Rochelle?
Well, sign me up. Figure out what date, get with the superintendent. I don't want to say that I'm a history buff, but, you know, it's always fun to learn something new. And so please figure out a date, if you would get with the superintendent or staff, and, you know, just pick a date. And then anybody that can make it, and other than that, you know, who knows, maybe we may even get a couple of parish commissioners, maybe some city council people to join us along the way.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Okay, second thing was transportation. How is the transportation?
So we use private school buses. So when I created my project, I did not want to I didn't want to ask for money. I didn't want to ask the teachers who sponsor the club to give another 10 hours out of their life each semester towards my project. So I built it to where we are supported by the business community, we're financed by the business community, and everything. We weren't going to ask for money and everything like that. We have our private buses. So I use Red River Tours, and iShuttle is what we've used in the past. Now, these last 2 tours that I did with Woodlawn and with Southwood, we actually used Caddo Parish school buses, because Sportran and all of the other bus drivers didn't come back to work post-COVID. So there were no bus drivers, so we had to resort to the Cato school as a last resort, but we don't want to do that. We want it to be a very special experience for the student, so we're bringing our own transportation. It's the biggest cost of my project, is transportation. But we don't want to use the Cato school buses.
Okay. All right, I'm looking forward to the date.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Bell?
I'm going to echo the same thing. Sign me up, too. And one thing I want to ask, what age group? That's middle school?
Starts at 6th grade, so it starts at middle school.
Middle school.
They can join my club in 6th grade. When they make the transition to high school, which is so difficult for so many of our students, they can walk into the club that they're already familiar with. It's waiting for them in high school.
But it's mostly in middle school.
It starts in middle. It's all in high school, too. So I've done it at most of our high schools. I've got a club at Woodlawn. Some schools, like Southwood's got a fantastic history club already. They don't want another competing history-oriented club, so I partner with the existing one, same at Caddo Magna High School. So some schools, I'm going to start a new club. Some schools, I'm just going to partner with existing clubs that they have. I don't want to, be another competing factor, and a lot of schools have a lot of clubs, and some schools, as you know, don't have very many at all. And I especially am intentional on getting into the Title I schools.
Board members, I really think we need to try to go on this tour, if we can. I like it. I want to know the 7 wonders.
They're wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have 17 tours in Caddo Parish. Each one of the 17 has 7 wonders.
Okay.
So I've been working on this for a long time.
I'll go read. You can set it up for me.
Thank you, Ms. Bell.
Thank you.
Ms. Green?
Okay, so we know those costs is associated. Okay, so you have 7 different tours.
17 in Caddo.
17 different tours of Caddo Parish.
Yes, very, very detailed work that I've done in Cato.
Now, let me ask you this, is Little Union, that church is in, is that in one of your tours?
That's in my African American history tour and my Allendale neighborhood tour.
That's all I needed to know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your presentation, sir.
Thank you. And you mentioned funding. So let me just tell you what my board, I'm run by a board of directors. I'm a nonprofit, so I do answer to a board, even though most people think that I'm just some lone shark wild running around town. I have a board of directors. They keep me in check. I've always said I don't want local, state, federal government money. I want to run this project on the backs of the business community that has a vested interest in teaching local history. Okay? My board has corrected me and said, go after the money. If it's available for use like this, go ask for it. So I've changed philosophies. I'm coming to ask for money, especially to help in my Title I schools. So if there is money available, I want to compete for that. I don't want a gift. I want to be a competitor for it. So we will be doing that too. Change of pace for me, but.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Now comes the time in our agenda for our visitors. As far as I know, we have only 3 have wished to speak today. We read this disclaimer before we ask you to come up to the podium. The Caddo Parish School Board welcomes your input and comments during our visitor section. When your name is called, please step to the microphone, give your name and address to make your remarks to the entire board. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. The clocks on the monitors will help you to be aware of your time. When the time runs out, your time is up. It is the board's policy not to respond individually to members of the audience. When appropriate, the board may refer concerns to the staff to be addressed. As this is a public meeting, we ask you to refrain from referring to personnel by name or incident. In accordance with school board policy, derogatory statements about or directed at a school board member, any employee, or any other person shall not be allowed. That being said, our first speaker today is Ms. Sheila Wimberly.
Good evening, everyone. President Nation, Superintendent Goree, of course, my school board official, Dottie Bell, and to each and every one of you. I'll be really, really quick. 6170 Wincanton Drive. Been speaking with a few parents about the 5 days that have been added to the school year. As far as vacations are concerned, a lot of those parents had scheduled vacations toward the end of summer. And so they have since then canceled a lot of those plans. And I think late in this situation, it was revised. And then, of course, the thing then was, of course, just keep your vacation time and spend that time with your children. But by then, a lot of those individuals who had planned those vacations had already canceled. So I guess their question is what do the 5 days play in? Why were the 5 days incorporated? And is that something that's mandatory, or can we skip that first 5 days of school and those days be excused? I'm sleepy at this point. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. John Glover? Yes, Mr. Little, go ahead.
I would just ask that we get an official response.
Certainly.
For Ms.
We'll get back to you on that. Yes, ma'am.
Now, the form you have is for me to speak to an agenda item, and I'd like to do that when that item comes forth. I also wanted to use that as my opportunity to speak aside from that agenda item. Can I do that? You know, we got to kind of clear it up before we get going.
Mr. Abrams, you want to address that?
Reggie.
Do you want to speak at the time of the agenda item itself?
Yes, I
And
do.
you want to talk about some other things at the same time?
Yes.
At that, so you'll speak one time?
Excuse me?
You'll be speaking only at one time?
No, I'm going to speak as a visitor here and then speak to that agenda item when that item comes up. That's
Yeah, you
what
can
I'm
do
trying
that.
to clarify.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But don't speak on that other item now.
I won't, and
Okay.
I won't.
Please continue.
John Glover, 9100 Walker Road, apartment 121, Shreveport, 71118. I, in concert with the comments that Ms. Wimberly made, am curious about this supposedly mandated 5-day, you got to go to school, and then there's no mandate that you got to go to school. Then the teachers are all in uproar because we had to go to school. Now we don't have to go to school, and we won't hold it against anyone. And what is this? Sounds confusing, doesn't it? And yet the message is out there. The message is that those 5 days were never mandated by the Louisiana Department of Education. Never. Then you had to consider the funding. Where were those dollars coming from? Because you're talking about teachers who have contracts. Now, if you were going to affect their salary schedule, would not those have to be recurring dollars? I mean, it's just a mess that seemingly has been created to maybe have a good effort to help the children start early to gain or to regain what they hadn't lost. But 5 days isn't going to do that, because the masses of the children that we probably speak to have not only been behind because of the pandemic, but they were behind before the pandemic. So to circumvent what could be, our dollars could be expended probably more economically, I don't think much thought was given to, nor the questions asked, to solidify and even to verify what was brought before you, 12 people that voted on this. So now you say you don't have to come. Did the parents hear it? Because it's out there. You don't have, the children don't have to come, nor do the teachers. So who benefits in the long run? Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we will, go ahead, Dr. Gorey, you wanted to make a comment?
Oh, no, not at
Okay,
all.
all right, I think that, close your mic
Absolutely
down, yes, sir. Okay. All right, we're going to go over our agenda items. Oh, you certainly do. I'm so sorry, Ms. Lansdale. I was jumping ahead.
I'm Jackie Lansdale. I'm the president of the Red River United, 1726 Line Avenue, Shreveport, Louisiana. Dr. Gorey, President Nations, ladies and gentlemen of the board, on behalf of the members of the Red River United, specifically the support division, we speak tonight in gratitude of the proposed board action by board member Trammell. We all know illness, whether personal or family or maternity, none of these are class specific. Cato recognized this years ago when the board passed the then only support employee extended sick leave policy in a non-collective bargaining district in the state. It was only after the state passed a statewide law that the Cato policy was no longer used. Unfortunately, when the certified law was later corrected to remove the 10-day provision, it was not removed for the classified employees. So for all these years since then, classified employees were forced to use the 10 days regardless of need or be penalized. Last spring, when the legislative session began, we were all so thankful when this board collectively supported the legislative action. Again, another unfortunate, after tremendous support in committee and on the floor, the legislation died on the last day when it was simply not heard. But from those ashes, Board Member Trammell was willing to revive the spirit and recognize the language in the current law which allows each district to make a local decision on granting days. We encourage this board to again be the board that recognizes the importance of treating all employees in a fair and like manner. Speaking of fair, survey tells us that employees respond to fair. So we ask you, is your pay philosophy and process fair? Is your pay structure fair and transparent? Do your employees feel they are working for a well-run company with a bright future? All of these are factors in employee satisfaction. So let's take the arbitrary decision to take away the September state pay raise. Remember, a state pay raise supplement, not local money, something we all agreed on in 2019 because there were no local funds to use to compete with other districts. Is that fair? Is it fair when you say, well, those bad-intentioned teachers may take this September supplement money and just not return? Yet on September 1st, you are poised to give $1,000 signing bonus to each brand-new teacher who sometimes quit within the first month. Is that fair? Are you saying that new teachers are more trustworthy than your veteran teachers? Is that fair? And in November, when you give classified employees their entire state pay raise supplement plus the $500 local permanent stipend, yet withhold $900 of the certified state pay raise and put it back in the salary schedule, Is that what you call fair? Is it transparent? You have to wonder, how in the heck did that turtle get on the fence post? It certainly didn't climb there, did it? So like the turtle, we're left to wonder. Did you use the state pay raise money for something else and just can't afford to allocate it? Or are you just angry with us? It's because we have the audacity to question you. And while we debate how arbitrarily taking something without regard can be considered unfair and not transparent, let's not forget while this is happening, other districts are adding other funds to this year's allocation of state pay raise, and as yesterday, your administration said, you're not. Bossier will add over $700 to the $1,500 state pay raise for teachers. They will more than likely allocate an additional $725 one-time supplement to all employees on the first day of school. That is what they have historically done. They must trust their employees more than you do. What you are poised to do is not fair. It is not transparent. And instead of a well-run company, this one is lacking in best practice. It is the total absence of communication, transparency, and common sense, and it's really toxic. Employees who perceive you are treating them differently or unfairly just don't stay. Board members, we so applaud your willingness to make the needed changes on the extended sick leave to treat all of your employees in a fair and just manner. Likewise, we encourage you to not create unneeded divisiveness in the state pay raise supplements, especially when there is absolutely no justifiable explanation that has been provided. In conclusion, these past 2 years have been absolutely brutal, and COVID has only been a little bit of it. It's time we change the channel, we course correct, and so that this board understands that this will not happen until we all step up and demand that we are transparent, that we return integrity, and we return accountability to the process. And again, we thank you always for your time and your service.
Thank you. All right, now is our time to establish our agenda.
You got 2 on the board.
Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Mel.
Okay, Mr. President, we'd like to ask staff to speak with Ms. Lansdale regarding that extended leave, so she'll understand what we're working on now, if that can happen, okay?
Okay.
Ms. Woolfolk will take care of that.
Okay, Ms. Woolfolk.
And Mr. Little?
Mr. Nations, I have a similar request. I would ask that we have a clarifying position statement published that is available for everyone to review, maybe a Q&A, something along those lines, because I think sometimes we're speaking over each other on this issue.
Okay.
If it's not been done.
What was that on now?
On the supplemental pay,
Okay.
the September
Gotcha.
pay, the November pay.
I do think we've sent that to the board, but I'll verify it, we'll send that out again,
If
okay?
it can be made public, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry for
Thank
those
you.
oversights. Now, it is time to establish our agenda and our proposed consent agenda. We're going to have Dr. Gorey to delineate our agenda items.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We'll start off item 6.01, personnel leave, certified and classified. Item 6.02, personnel resignations, classified. 6.03, administrative contract renewals. 6.04, personnel recommendations. Item 7.01, consideration of child nutrition program bids. Item 7.02, purchasing bids. Item 8.01, property bus rental request. Item 8.02, consideration to approve revisions to policy DJE. Item 8.03, consideration to approve revisions to policy GBRL. Item 6.04, consideration to approve revisions to policy JD, and that's dealing with discipline. 8.04, consideration to approve modifications to the 2022-2023 board meeting schedule. Item 8.06, consideration to approve first extension of Rutherford House residential service agreement. Item 8.07, consideration to approve request for a long-term lease of the Mooringsport Library Facility. Item 13.01, student readmissions appeals hearings. There is one, and the family is in agreement with staff. Item 13.02, request for settlement authorization in Billy Montgomery versus Caddo Parish Public Schools, civil action number 632527-B, claim number 7124382. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. we're going to go down the agenda items and determine which ones that we can put on consent. 6.01, personnel resignations. 6.02, 6.03, administrative contract renewals. 6.04, personnel recommendations.
We got, you got some.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Let me get you on the
Jasmine first, you can go first. Mine's quick too, but you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Just making sure, Dr. Gorey, this isn't a new position for the student well-being specialist, is it?
Yes, that is a new position. It's a Title IV position, and those dollars are, it's not a general fund position, but the funding that this position is designed from is specifically designated towards student well-being and creating a social emotional environment for students to be successful. It's a position that we have created. It is a new position, but I think it's important to note it's not a general fund position.
So it comes out, you say Title IV?
Right, it's a Title IV position, which is specific around what we're doing to create a social, emotional, healthy environment. I think even as we look and talk, and the interesting thing is that this is a position that we've talked about for many years. I do think COVID and how this has socially, emotionally affected our children has made it even more relevant. I think even as we look at the situation with things like crime and cyberbullying and things that just were created as a result of COVID that created an environment that students need additional supports, that's directly what this position will do. So when you look at organizing and managing our social emotional learning platforms, this person will be in charge of that. When you look at how they're creating those responsive and those responsive efforts when we have kids that are involved in adverse childhood experience, that's what this position will do. So, but to answer your question, yes, it's a new position.
So we understand Title IV takes care of her salary. Now, are there some other things associated with this as such as she gets a aid or
No, ma'am, it's not. The position is at the supervisor level, so she will work somewhat the same efforts in the same space as our our supervisor of school counseling, which is Renata Mahoney. But really, all of those social emotional aspects will shift to her. And again, there is no additional clerical support or any other positions being budgeted to support her.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Dixon?
While hers was quick, math gonna be quicker. We kind of were thinking along the same line. I had the same questions about the position. I guess I assumed it was new. I just wondered what the position was gonna be responsible for.
Right.
So I'm good.
And what we too will do is make sure the board gets a copy of and it may be attached here. I know the resume is, but the job description. Make sure the board has a copy of that document as well.
So are we comfortable putting it on consent?
Sure.
Okay, great. 7.02, purchasing bids.
You skipped one.
Okay, I'm sorry. 7.01, consideration of child nutrition program bids. Okay, now, 7.02, purchasing bids. Okay, 8.01, go ahead, Mr. Trammell, let me get you on the
When we're
mic.
looking at the instruments that we're purchasing in this order, are they listed by schools, or this is just instruments that we have?
Ms. Price, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Howard? Okay,
Ms. Price, you want to speak to?
who's going to speak to that?
She's coming.
Okay.
Did you get the question? Good,
Mhm.
okay.
Good afternoon, President Nations and board members. The instruments are listed by the type of instrument, and to the right of that spreadsheet, you'll see the actual schools that the instruments are being ordered for.
Okay,
And the
to the
quantities
right.
are being ordered. When you look at the spreadsheet, you should have the list of instruments on the left and the type of instrument, and then to the far right, there should be something that has, let me pull it out. They were supposed to reload it to the site. You did? Okay.
Okay, I'm just turning it over.
And it should be, I think it starts with Turner. Turner's listed on there, Captain Shreve, Green Oaks, Woodlawn. There's several different schools listed.
Okay, so,
And it has numbers underneath the names
Where?
of the schools.
what about this sheet? Wait a minute, I know what to do.
Is it one more down?
No, I need to increase it. Okay, now. There you go. That, okay.
You see it?
No, I still don't see. All right, thank you, Am.
Okay.
No,
Mr. Rochelle?
It's on the microfilm. That's a lot of money. It's $147,000 that we're paying to have things converted over to digital format. Dr. Gorey or whoever could answer this question, I'm assuming that we're getting rid of a whole bunch of storage and
That's exactly what's happening.
is there going to be, and I know we have a lot of buildings, so we have storage space, but are we going to save any money in there? Is there going to be any savings in there at all?
You know, I don't know if there's going to be savings in that, but I think it's exactly what you described, is that we're just becoming a little more modern in how we store information and making sure that we have that available.
It does. It takes a lot of time. I have yet to get all of my old files digitized. It takes,
Right.
it's very difficult. But anyway, I think it's great that we're doing this, and of course, I think it also, historically, it will give us our information that will be safe and secure
Absolutely.
forever
Correct.
and ever,
And it makes
versus
it
if something
easier.
gets lost,
Right.
misplaced, or anything else. So this is a good thing. I like it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ryle?
Thank you. On this digital format, after we complete this conversion, will all the information be immediately available? When like if I go to attendance, and we're looking for attendance for something in a school that was 30 years ago for somebody, will that information be totally available just at the drop of a hat on the computer?
At the request, the staff will be able to access the information for whoever needs it, and it's basically transcripts.
Okay, because I had a situation of this, a couple of years ago, and they had to go dig through warehouses all over everywhere to get this done.
That's because it wasn't, it's probably, it was still on paper.
But that'll eliminate that problem if
Yes,
we do this.
yes,
Okay.
it should
Thank you.
eliminate that.
That'll be good.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we're down to 8.01, property bus rental request.
Consent.
8.02, consideration to approve revision to policy DJE. Any discussion or consent?
No.
Ms. Green?
If you don't mind, when we have time, I know Ms. Lynch left out after I put that on consent, but that child nutrition program, I'm going to want to know, are we still going with the same?
Right, we still will provide complimentary meals to all students. Is that what
Okay.
you were talking about?
Yeah, and
CEP
is it going to
program?
be the same kind of meals that we had last time?
I think as you transition out of the whole COVID situation, all the things that they created, she is looking to bring back more of the kitchen items, many of the recipes that we were just not able to do in COVID. So I do think you're going to see an improvement. I know there's been a lot of conversations. There's been several tastings
Yeah.
over the summer of food. So I do think you're going to see an improvement in what we're offering.
Yeah, because what we went through the past 2 years, I can't take much more of that.
I think it will definitely be an improvement. there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. So consent on 8.02? Okay. 8.03, consideration to approve revision to policy GBRL. Everybody good with that? Okay. 8.04, consideration to approve revision to policy JD concerning discipline.
Consent.
Okay. Before we vote on consent, we'll have you come and speak to that item, Ms. Glover, in just a moment, though. Just
Which thing was it?
before we'll have to actually vote, okay? Before we actually vote, we'll have you speak, okay? Consideration to approve modifications to the 2022-2023 board meeting schedule, that's 8.05.
Consent.
8.06, consideration to approve first extension of Rutherford House Residential Services Agreement. 8.07, consideration to approve request for long-term lease of Mooringsport Library Facility. Question, Mr. Rochelle.
Hey, thank you, Mr. President. Hey, on the amount of insurance, because the property is still going to belong to us, is that our standard insurance that we're asking them to have? Because in this legal society that we live in, everybody gets named in things. Is that our standard?
Who you
I'm gonna defer to
directing that
Mr. Abrams.
Mr. Abrams, okay, let me get him on.
At the amount.
What? It just, I don't know, I just.
Is it $1 million?
It's $1.5 million. It's,
Yeah,
is that our normal?
it is. Recognize that now, as far as insurance, as far as us being in charge of the building and everything else, liability is only going to be on us if we have notice of some type of defect associated with the building. We put everything on them. The building itself is going to be in their control. So the chances of any liability are very, very low. So we have actually moved it all to them. And they actually have been in this building forever, from what I understand.
Okay, and on notice, I've dealt with some of those in the past. So in the event that somebody publicly comes to us, or in whatever form or fashion, and/or to, actually they'd have to put us on notice. If they notify us, and then an incident does occur for whatever they brought up, we could be brought in.
If they notify us of an actual defect, that's correct. And we have to have an opportunity to repair.
Remedy it,
But in
yeah.
actuality, we actually have them indemnify us also.
Okay,
So we bounce it back to them again.
okay, all right, just want to make sure. And what are they going to use it for? Do we know?
I think it's a library.
Okay, so
It's a library.
it is. so
Right,
they're
they've
just
been
gonna-
there for
It's been a
many
library.
years. It's just cleaning up a situation that we needed to legally clean up.
Okay.
They've been using it.
Okay, well, I just, okay, good. Good enough for me.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Bell.
Okay, I just need to ask the attorney, I'm on the library board. Do I vote for this, or do I abstain? I mean, what I do?
It's not Street Memorial, though. It's not Street Memorial. It's
Yeah,
not,
this
it's
is,
city, it's a city.
I'm on the library board of all libraries. I'm on Street Memorial Library.
So y'all govern the Mooringsport Library, too?
Yes, we,
Okay.
Greenwood and all, Belcher and all. Do I do it, I need that, I just want to make sure I'm legal, okay. I am on
Stay
the,
off consent.
other than that, we're comfortable with consent still? All right,
I'm on, we're on,
I don't know that you can't do consent if she has to abstain.
I'm going to abstain because I am on the library board.
okay, no
Okay.
problem. Okay, where was that? Yes, skipping down to 13.01, student readmission appeal hearings.
I have a comment.
Okay. Well, first of all, Mr. Ryle.
Okay, thank you. In relation to this library situation, they've had this library for a long time.
Long time.
This would not even have come up except somebody in the administration of the Mooringsport City secured some type of grant, and it came up with who's going to be responsible for paying it if they don't do what they're supposed to do or something of this nature. And when all that came up, I got in touch with Mr. Greer, and he did all the research on it, that they've had this thing forever. And now this transfer, it's 99 years now, so basically, we don't have to worry about it anymore, what it is.
Okay. Mr. Rochelle.
Hey, I think it's worth noting, on the student readmission with no names, that the student involved wrote an incredible letter that is worth the time reading. And I think it is a perfect example of the processes that we have in place. And it really is a good letter. If you have a chance to read it, I would take the time to read it. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you reading it, too.
Okay.
You know I read them.
I appreciate
So
it.
consent on 13.01, am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then 13.02, request for settlement authority in the Billy Montgomery versus Caddo Parish School Board action. The particulars are in your for your reading, so consent on that? Okay. Now, before we vote on our consent agenda, Ms. Glover, would you like to speak to item number 8.04? Yes, ma'am.
I don't think it's necessary that I repeat my name, unless you say I need to. But as I read this piece of legislation, is what I call it, though it is a policy that you're trying to amend or revise, I wondered if anyone did any homework to find out if there is a Louisiana revised statute that would support your telling parents that you could possibly be faced with a fine and imprisonment if you fail to bring your elementary and/or middle school children to school on time. I mean, you all have that power to say that? Please.
You can't. You can't answer that question.
The answer is yes, and so you move on.
Okay.
I'm giving you legal advice now.
Please continue, Ms. Glover.
So, since I got an answer, is there a revised statute that supports this? If it's not too much of an inconvenience, I'd like to know that revised statute. Thank you.
We'll have staff get with you. Mr. Little.
Thank you, Mr. Nations. I just wanted to ask that staff do a response while we're here.
Okay.
And quickly handle this.
No problem. Okay. That being said, the only item not on consent, it'll be 8.07. So I would entertain a motion to establish the agenda and the proposed consent agenda. Mr. Green.
I move that we approve the consent agenda. Huh?
Okay.
Hey, look, hey, move to establish the agenda, proposed consent agenda for the July 19, 2022 Caddo Parish School Board meeting as presented.
Thank you. Mr. Rowell.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Trammell.
Oh, no.
Okay, all right. Please vote on our agenda and proposed consent agenda. Okay. Now to confirm the consent agenda, please vote. Mr. Rochelle?
Move to confirm the consent agenda.
And Mr. Rowell.
Second.
Okay, please vote. Okay.
Mine didn't come up. It didn't come up. It just came up.
All right.
It just came.
Only item left for consideration will be 8.07.
She needs to vote.
She hasn't voted yet?
She
Okay.
said her thing didn't come up.
It came up.
She got, we're good, we're
Okay.
good.
Did it register?
Yeah, it
Yes.
Okay.
All right, there's our tally on the screen. Understanding that Ms. Bell will be abstaining, let's vote on 8.07.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay? And there you go, our motion is made, and Dr. Dozart seconds it, I assume. Yes, ma'am?
Second.
Okay, now I vote. Mr. Rowell, okay, go ahead.
I want to thank Mr. Greer for all the effort he put into that, because I know that took a lot of research, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Dr. Dozart?
I'm sorry, I'm kind of anticipating for announcements.
Okay, well, go right ahead. That's our next, an easy segue into that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, the first black person to have a state commission statue and statuary hall at the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., July 13, 2022. That's my announcement.
Amen. Thank you for that. Mr. Rowland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a statement. One, a longtime educator of Caddo Parish, Dr. Powell Layton, who was the first first principal at Northwood High School, passed away last week. He was 1 month shy of 100th birthday. And I remember Dr. Gorey and I both were at the dedication of the garden at Northwood High School here a while back, and Dr. Layton was there and supported that. So remember his family in your prayers.
Thank you for that. Mr. Little.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two requests that I'm making. Number one, the audit department. I'm requesting that they determine a cost per student to operate schools from all funding sources, not just general fund. I'm hoping to have school level data as well. I think this will be important information for us in upcoming months as we make decisions. And then I have a second request, how many employees were absent more than 12 weeks with pay? And if we can get data going back for the last 5 years and the cost to the district for that. Thank you.
Duly noted. And again, just to reiterate that one, if you do have a request, make sure you put it in writing and submit it to our board secretary. Ms. Green?
Thank you, Mr. President. Very quickly, been getting a few calls. I know it was mentioned in the visitor section about the definite start date. Is it mandatory those 5 days? And we need to make that clear, if it is or if it isn't. We need to make that clear, and will they be penalized? I think I've gotten 3 calls, 2 yesterday, and 1, somebody stopped me at church going around the offering table.
Okay.
So, I think they definitely need to know if it is going to be mandatory those first 5 days.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon?
My question is around what, I saw on the website, the start date was August 3rd. That's the date?
Right, and let me assure you, every school has communicated this directly with their families. Every school. But again, we will continue to communicate that out to the families, that school does start on August 3rd. Everything that you do on the first day of school will be done in our K-8 schools on August 3rd. That's the beginning of school. We've been very clear from the beginning that if there was a trip planned or a reason why, whether staff or student can't come in, we'll work very closely with them. And every principal has just worked hard on trying to clarify this and making sure this is clarified. So I encourage you to continue to encourage your constituents to contact their schools, which is where they have the very best relationships, and they can help clarify that too. But we too will continue to clarify that through our principals.
Thank you, Dr. Gorey. Mr. Miller?
Dr. Gorey, just to let you know, somehow I've got on one of those, what the things called when they just keep calling you?
A robocall?
I'm on a robocall from one of our schools. I received the announcement telling me how school would start. And maybe we all need to hear that from the schools and see what they're putting out there to the parents, because maybe some of the parents are not receiving the information. And that's why, well, I mean, I've got a couple of calls.
It may not be a bad idea.
Yeah, so you can hear what they're telling, so we'll know what they're telling them, since we have all this going on, what is and what's not.
Right, and I think there was some information on social media. I received 3 calls from principals, so frustrated because it was some of their parents, and I do think some of that's happening, that there is a level of confusion out there. But again, we want to work with everyone. Our goal, and I think it was so well said, is to just provide opportunities to start closing gaps with children. So again, we will continue to encourage our principals to keep communicating. I sent a notification out on Monday, so I know something else went out, but multiple things have been sent out to families communicating the start of school.
Okay. And I just want to say to my fellow board members, tomorrow qualifying starts. If you're planning to be reelected, run for office, you can start your qualifications tomorrow. Just a public service announcement.
I was going to say something about that, but you stole my thunder. Thanks so much, Ms. Bell, Ms. Trammell, but,
And more serious note, Cato Technology, what is it, Cato?
Career Technology
Career
Center.
and Technology, they lost one of the best instructors on this side of the world the other day, and he was actually in a learning session when he got sick, and he died, and they brought him back, and his services will be this week. Mr. Weiss.
Okay, Ms. Bell?
Yeah, my announcement is that we have, the summer graduation is August 4th. Do we have a certain attire that we need to wear?
How about we get back to you on that? Generally, at summer graduation, we just wear, nice, church-type attire. Yeah.
It's hot. And remember the heat now, okay? I just want to know.
You probably want to wear your shirt?
Yes.
Any other announcements?
Yeah.
I would entertain a motion, Mr. Rowell.
Move to adjourn?
I think I got several seconds. Ms. Green, we'll put Ms. Green down as official as a second.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote adjourn.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
I went way longer than it should have.
Say what?